Hello and welcome. It's time for another new live letter as my green screen gets a little bit better. We got lights in, so let's jump in. This is all coverage from interviews that came out before the live letter that goes live on April 1st. And these went out to the Japanese gaming sites. So these is Famitsu, GameWatch, 4Gamer. That means I'm operating off of translations. And so it's really rough to kind of piece together words, and the more you read these translations, the more you learn like certain patch names and expansion names have like common translations because they don't come over exactly the same because the localization team kind of handles it from there. And the Reddit team, of course, took a pass at this as well, and they do a wonderful job catching this. There's a lot of people over there that are bilingual between Japanese and English, and so I always appreciate them. So I am using their article and my reads of these, and so across all 4 sites, links will be below. I pulled stuff and just launched them all into a document. They're going to be in a random order, so I kind of tried to put things together, but we're moving really fast as I prepare for tomorrow, and so let's dive in. The concept for 6.1 is supposed to be a message to players that new challenges still await, since the devs were worried players would feel burnt out after Endwalker. Anybody? And Yoshi P said to this, all right, yeah, I mean, I'm a Star Wars fan. This is like the fourth movie, A New Hope. I thought something more direct would be good. I brought this idea to the story localization team, and they suggested Newfound Adventures should be the patch title. Now, then he got a question about glamour. Let's just get this out of the way. I've seen a few people say that the clothes depicted in the patch art will be implemented, and that they really want that backpack. And Yoshi P said that backpack is going to be difficult because of interference with the carrying weapon. I'm thinking about whether there's any way, but clothes are safe to look forward to. In order to implement the backpack, we would have to create a new system. It's possible that maybe it could be something like a fashion item, but the thing to carry would have to be worried about, and you'd have not only weapons, interference with other equipment, the body shape, gender difference, character posture, when it's attached to armor. You know, he thinks it can be implemented, but as things are crowded, it would be something that would have to work on. Then we move on to, will the purpose of this adventure be revealed during the MSQ of 6.1? And he said, well, the Heidelin Zodiac saga was completed beautifully. That is what they are calling everything from 2.0 to the end of 6.0. So that's the name they've given that. The Heidelin Zodiac arc is what they've called that as a whole. That's not reference to any one particular moment. That's just the entirety of what they feel focused on there. And he said, but if you look widely at everything there is in Final Fantasy XIV, there are still many unknown regions and mysteries. This time the adventure begins not because we're asked by somebody, but purely from let's go looking for something new. The purpose is to be presented at a really early stage, but he thinks that the road to kind of solving it will be disappointing as usual, so please look forward to it. Obviously, setting up kind of some cliffhangers that will hopefully get us through 7.0. In my opinion, really low stakes. At the time, those may feel lackluster. We may have people say they take a break from the game, but when we look back, in my opinion, at 10.0 and we're wrapping up again, or 11.0 and we're wrapping up again, I think it'll be really nice if we look back and there's this lull right here, where there's these kind of, when I think of the Lord of the Rings, talking to the Ents, this slow moment, as opposed to just charging back in, where in my opinion, if you're wrapping up the saga, we can't just charge right back into the same stakes. So I personally hope it's really low stakes, because of what that will mean is to the narrative as a whole, even though from a gameplay perspective, that may feel really lackluster in the here and now. Now, they did say, so you're going on a new adventure, right? And he said, well, you should know that the thoughts, goals, and dreams of various characters, this time we need to look at the nuance around the adventures that starts while kind of spinning them together. And so, kind of based around that content-wise, will we see the same one patch, one dungeon remain unchanged in the future, at least for now? And he says, yes, that does not change. Once again, doesn't mean it could never change, but for now, we're looking at one patch, one dungeon. In this patch, the name of the instance dungeon is hidden. This isn't this the first time? I mean, it's pretty rare that things get hidden. Usually it's like extremes and things like that. So for them to hide the dungeon name Is this a place that you can't talk about, or is this just for the convenience of the main story? He said, it's not a place where you can't talk about it. I just think that before the broadcast, I told them to make it a secret. When the community team turns the live letter materials in for final review, they told the publicity team that they wanted it to be hidden. And so, based around spoilers here, they ask, I'm jumping between interviews here, so feel free to go read all of these. There's also questions that I left out to get this down to a reasonable amount of time. It doesn't matter if it's just an image, but if so, could you tell us which Alliance raid is most similar to the Myths of the Realm that we're going to be going into this patch? The Alliance raid is large and easy to put in all sorts of new mechanics. So we are consciously incorporating new things as we do it, but in a sense, it may be close to Return to Ivalice. In addition, since it's a new series, we aim to feel that you can enjoy it while feeling new, but that you can clear it while being, the translation here is annihilated at times, which many of us who have done week 1 Alliance raids, I think annihilated may be an apt translation there. We are still making final adjustments. We've readjusted a few points, but we'll playtest it through the development team for the first time around next week. However, if it continues to be such a long time, the skill development players have improved, won't be enough. If you increase the difficulty, then people will say, did you make it too easy? So we have to be very careful with that. He also, based around Alliance raids, I saw that Reddit grabbed, I didn't see where they grabbed this, but that there may be the possibility of making a soloable version of Crystal Tower sometime after 7.0. Obviously, with Crystal Tower being required for the MSQ, that would really make MSQ something where you never have to wait outside of trials. And they've talked about post 7.0 making trials supported by the trust system. The duty support system is the new name. And so that would mean that somebody could theoretically get caught all the way up without ever running into like a DPS queue or being asked to speed up because they're busy taking in the moment and enjoying that feel. So people that really want to be thorough would have that optional side path. We'll talk about, does that make this a single player game, in a little bit. If you recall it, the MSQ in the past has had strong political and dramatic aspects to it. From this patch illustration, I feel more adventure-like, but what kind of adventure will it be? He said, well, I, Yoshi P, have not had a strong desire to do political dramas. However, when we were writing this story early for the 3 countries following from Final Fantasy XIV 1.0, it was inevitable because the world was thick, was developed with that. And it's not to say that everybody in the world should be stable with their shoulders hugging each other, but if the world of the adventure spreads, if the word of the adventure kind of spreads, then things will come across new problems that are different. However, it'll become an obstacle which comes out ahead of trying to clarify the mystery of the world more than political drama. First of all, he wants to draw a story that pursues the mysteries that still remain in the world. For example, we know the cause of the world's, it says division. I'm assuming this is one of the calamities. But what happened to the other worlds? I assume he's talking shards here. The warrior, but I don't want to translate those without noting that I'm doing it because words matter when you get into this stuff. The Warrior of Light can cross to the first with their body, but for now, only there. Not all of the maps are, like, we can't go just anywhere. What lies beyond the sea? We haven't seen that yet. He thinks there's a lot to be done on the new continent, such as what kind of activities are already being carried out there. He hopes that you will look forward to where we go next and how the cards will be turned over for the time being. As a brief aside to development, they asked if the development of 6.0 was full work from home, and were there any difficulties? He did say about 80% of the staff are working from home, but if you're on the same floor, there were cases where it did cause problems that had to be solved later. On that kind of business side of things, they said the free trial was resumed the other day. Is the number of new accounts still growing? He said it's growing steadily. From here, the promotions and PR activities begin focusing on patch 6.1, and he thinks that that growth will become even larger. Now, shifting to PvP. Patch 6.1 is going to be adding Crystal Conflict for anybody that hasn't been following that. With that, we get like a new badge type system, and that'll be well outside of PvP. This is a drastic change to PvP. It's going to add like a battle pass type thing. It's a massive overhaul. So they said, tell us about the rules. Well, PvP is where we're going to have Crystal Conflict is going to be 2 teams of 5, 5v5. In my mind, it looks similar to like an Overwatch type thing. Ish. Instead of competing for the number of times you defeat your opponent or for total damage, you move the crystal pedestal in the center of the map and you push it to your opponent's base to win. It's a very tug-of-war type thing. We reviewed all the job actions and we've prepared self-heal for all jobs. As a result, we aim to eliminate role binding during matchmaking and make it easy to get in on any job. Until now, the burden on the healer roles has been this, that they have to heal, and that's been a large draw, but the goal is to make people be able to play casual and play very boldly, and from the beginning, they're going to implement 3 maps. There is no map kind of trick to it. They're simple map. It's a simple map, and then there's a map where lava's falling from the sky in a volcanic zone. I wonder if that's Angora there in Valbrand. And exploding along the passage. The last one is a map where the storm comes and fights while being wound up by the wind. The fighting map will automatically switch within some number of minutes. We also want to keep in mind that the match time should hopefully be around 5 minutes. Win or lose, there will be a sudden death that will kick in, and then we would win and lose within a very short time. Talking about new players getting in, this is a common question. This was, I believe, one of the ones that I grabbed from Reddit, just to note that, because I don't have any context on which interview this came from, because this is big. Asking if in 6.1 there would be a starting point for new players in the future. Yoshi P has said that he has not conveyed this fully to the development team yet, but at some point in the future, when they continue to develop and operate the game for a long time, it would be good to have a second starting point, because we've hit a clean cutoff, and right now they don't think it needs to be like that, but as a game designer, as he's looking out at the future, implementing the unending codex that's coming soon, is part of that plan. The unending codex being a lore reference, an in-game encyclopedia. If you could just pull up Pyromancer's notebook and Ethos's notes and have, a little bit of the wiki all in-game, the unending codex seems to kind of be that bridge for any of us that like something comes up and it's been years and you're like, I don't remember who that is. Very nice. At the 68th live letter, we also announced the support of the solo play. What's the purpose of solo play while being an MMORPG? So here he says, I want you to be able to play the MSQ of Final Fantasy XIV, which is very popular among Final Fantasy games, all the way up to 6.0 without any hesitation. That's all there is to it. Recently, he sees voices about the anxiety of like the MMORPG-ness is going to disappear. But Final Fantasy XIV is not just a game of the main story. If you think about playing the various types of content after your MSQ is over, matchmaking is still required. This is still an MMO. To the end here, the biggest purpose is to respond to those who shy away just because of the word MMO. Let's get them in, get them playing the single-player MSQ, and maybe that's all they want to play, but get those hurdles down much lower, and if you like your character there, you immerse yourself in the story, and you want to know more about the world, or you're having fun, then as you follow the story, you might begin to want to experience the multiplayer. And there's a real goal to increase the base population in this way, and tell them that MMORPG and online multiplayer are interesting, and not scary. He'd be happy, now talking about Ultimate, he'd be happy for people who aren't aiming for World First, but do still want this to be a new Ultimate soon after release. He does believe that it will take them 4 to 5 months to complete it, casually. It's not uncommon for people's first time to do, especially if they're not watching guides, they're trying to blind prog. He's not worried about the World Firsters. They're going to take care of themselves. But he is worried about the people who prefer to take it slower because he believes it may take longer than T. Uwu and T were structured around solving the puzzle of the whole fight. There will also be an element of Dragon's Song War here, that obviously, but he thinks overall it'll be closer to Yukab. As for the length, he usually tries to make it so that Ultimates do not go over 20 minutes, but it is long. Now, last of all, there were a bunch of questions on voice actors in one of them, I think the 4G. He said that he's not the one who decides on the casting for voice actors. There's been a lot of praise and stuff around that. He feels it's more appropriate for people who write the story to decide who should be the voice of those characters. However, he has never attended voice recordings in all the years he's directed the game, since he doesn't want to as the director and producer. His interpretation of the story and characters, he doesn't want that to influence the actors more than the writers being there. Reen's voice actress in Shinose Kana, among others, gives suggestions for other actors that could play new NPCs, and sometimes they're very particular about casting. Matsuoka Yoshitsugu, the voice of Kirito, who performs Hermes, massive thing here, is an enthusiastic 14 player and made it clear he wanted to appear in the game. So unusually, the development team went to him and asked that he perform. And so there was just a little bit of feedback around that. I think that went on into a bit more of a conversation. The very cool thing about the Japanese interviews is they are more conversational. It's not, let me ask a big bulky question, let me give a big bulky answer. There is this, let me ask a question. Okay, that took a pivot. Let me tell you how I feel about that answer. Wow, that really surprises me. Oh, I don't know why it surprises you. And like you get a much more back and forth, and I think you get a deeper understanding. You also don't ever end up where like the answer doesn't seem to match the question because you're jumping through translation. And so I like these interviews. It makes me wish I spoke Japanese. But very cool. Very excited for the live letter. We will be live an hour before it starts and over on Twitch. And I will put out a summary. And if it's very long, I will put out a speed summary here over on Work to Game. Brian and I will probably make a discussion post around it as well. And so looking forward to that. It does look like I would guess that the patch date is probably the 12th, since the live letter is usually about 2 weeks before the patch. That puts it 2 Tuesdays away. So April 12th is probably 6.1. So any of you that want to finish Cape Westwind or Praetorium one last time, anybody that wants to have their inventory cleaned, any of that, go ahead and get that done. And I hope to see you all at the live letter, unless you're watching this and it's already happened. And I hope that you are enjoying the incredible amount of content that is coming with 6.1. The second live letter is about showing us that content, not adding to the amount we're getting. And so we already know it's a huge amount. I'm just looking forward to seeing more details on it. Kinda.